Hi everyone, Cathy Coloff here from IT Radix, and thank you for joining us in our series on Teams. This week we thought we would focus a little bit on apps inside of Teams. I think most of the folks on the webinar know who I am, so I've been at this for about 30 years. I don't consider myself a guru, but I like to play around and learn a lot about the technology that we're using. So you may have some questions that might stump me, but I'll do my best to answer them. We did get a couple right before the call today. IT Radix is obviously an IT support company, managed services provider. We've been around since 2008, and we're happy to be a silver partner. And we want to be your trusted technology guide in all things Microsoft and beyond. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Teams. So Teams, we've covered things in terms of chatting and phone calls and meetings and things like that. And so today we thought we'd turn an eye towards apps and the various apps that are out there. Just a few examples of what you could do. So when you're in the Teams application, you may notice it. I'll do a demo in a little bit, that you can add in apps. And so when we're referring to apps, we're referring to apps that are outside of Microsoft and the Teams environment. It could be a third party, and I'm going to go through a few here today. So some of the examples that I'm going to show you, one's called Polly. It's a polling type of an app, and you can use it to ask your folks questions through Teams and get statistics and answers on that. There's something called Whiteboards, which is a Microsoft app, again, outside of Teams. It's available as a standalone app. There's also, the other one I'm going to show you today is if you're using Zoom, like we're using Zoom today, you can keep track of your online meetings and actually launch them inside of the Teams application. Microsoft really wants to build Teams up as sort of becoming your new single pane of glass. And so you'll notice for all the icons on the, when you're inside of the application, you can do a lot of your communications and collaboration and file sharing and so forth inside of Teams. And apps is just one more piece of that. And if we have time, I'm going to just show a quick little place where you can add in bookings, which is built into Microsoft 365. It's been rebranded. And I'll show you how you can add that into Teams as well. So as I mentioned, I'm not really going to spend a lot of time going through PowerPoint slides. I'm actually going to spend most of my time doing a demo. So here's Teams. And this should hopefully be familiar at this point, but if not, this is the downloaded app. And as I mentioned, you could see the search bar here, and then this little, on the left-hand side, there's a control bar where you can jump into the various functions and features of Teams. These are a lot of the default ones. And if you see these three little buttons, right, the three little dots there, the ellipses, if you click on it, you can install apps, and you'll notice it says find an app. And in there, you can type in apps that you might be looking for, things like, I'm going to just type in Whiteboard, and it will show you some of the apps, other apps besides Microsoft's that it is available inside of Teams. So those, you could check them out. I encourage you to, check out the different apps that are out there. So for example, project management, things like that. CRMs, if you have Zoho or something like that, you can potentially add that app into.
Because I turn this on.
Today, I'm going to add, which is a polling app. And what you have to do is usually your system administrator may have to install this for you. And you can see here, in this case, this one's a polling application. It's called Polly. There are others that are out there. This one's pretty simple and easy to use. And so what you can do is you can learn, obviously, and once you get installed, you can learn more and you can dismiss these messages. And I'm actually going to show you a poll in 1 second here. So if you want to do a poll, the one way you can launch this is you would just go to Teams, and whatever channel you want to be in your Teams, you can come in here to this. In this case, I'm actually going to do this one as a demo in the channel called Information for our cast members. You can click on New Conversation, and if you start typing at Polly, it will pop up, gives you a chance to put just a quick simple poll, or you could do an advanced poll. And I'm actually going to go into this advanced to give you a sense of what it looks like. So once you do this, it may ask you for your credentials. It may not. I'll give it a second. And you can create a new poll, or you can create some. If you want to do a recurring poll, for example, you can do that. And you can see they give you a lot of canned templates that are in here that you could use for ideas of things that you might want to do inside of Teams. So, you know, for example, if you onboard a new employee, you can have a set of questions that you ask them in the first 30 or 90 days of their job. There's a lot of canned ones here. Monthly happiness, so they have recurring polls that you could kick off on a monthly basis, things like that. We created a fun little one. And so it's easy enough to create a template, but you can just search on my templates. And so you can see we created one called Who's Your Favorite Dwarf? And I'm going to actually preview and send this one. So if I click on it, the question is who's your favorite dwarf? We pre-populated it with the answers. And then you can send this poll out and it will now go out to the team. And you can see it was created down here on the pop-ups, and then here in this, in the window in the channel, the various folks who are members of the team will now have an opportunity to answer that. And I failed to introduce some of the IT Radix people that were with us today. So we have Just In Case. Ken Toomey is filling in as Just In Case in our little demo world here today. And I have Dan Parzanese, who is our Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain today. So Ken, just to go to give you a sense of how this works, I'm going to vote for my favorite dwarf, and at the same time I'm going to have Just In Case do the same thing. And you can see it updates real time. You've probably seen this in Zoom and other places, or maybe if you've been at events, they do a lot of these polls, are very popular now. And if multiple people vote, it will real time update, and people can actually change their votes. So sometimes we'll use this for voting on activities, or maybe something we want to do for lunch. There's a whole slew of things, but it's pretty simple. You just type @Polly, you put in your poll, and off you go. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. Just again, trying to give you a flavor of things that are available out there. The next thing I wanted to spend a little bit of time on was some of the other apps that are out there. So there's one called, if you want to do whiteboard, you would typically do this if you're trying to collaborate when you're in a meeting. You're going to start a meeting. So I'm going to click on this Meet Now button, which is here. And I'm going to meet now. I'm going to join the meeting. And give this a second to connect. Now, you have to understand I'm using Teams inside of Zoom, so you may see a little pop-up about the sound. I'm going to invite Just In Case to join us. So here we go. Justin is going to join us. And while we're working, I can choose to share a whiteboard with him. So if you see what I did is I clicked up here on the little share button right here, so where it says hide share options. If I go back, it's a toggle, share content. So I can choose to share my desktop. I can choose to share any of the windows I have open, or I can choose to launch a whiteboard. So I'm going to show you this whiteboard real quick. So that's going to open up, and we can both edit this at the same time. So I'm going to be editing in red, and Justin is going to edit in some other color, which we didn't predetermine, but you can see that I'm going to draw my favorite puffy cloud, which is the internet, and Justin is writing in the blue ink. You'll notice I'm using a stylus because my computer actually has a stylus and supports it because it's a touch screen. In Justin's case, he's using his mouse to do that. So you can use a mouse, you don't have to have a stylus in order to use this whiteboard. And you can save these. Now, obviously, this isn't a very meaningful whiteboard here, but if you had a meeting where you had taken notes and you wanted to save it, there are a lot of things that you can do inside of here. You can open it inside of the app. You can continue to use it in Teams. And then if you'll notice over here, I'm going to just go over to the app. So this is what the app looks like outside of Teams. And you can come in here and, this is one I created the other day. Here's let's pretend this had something meaningful. You can choose off of the radio over here to export it. You can put it in Teams. You can post it in Teams. You can send it as an email summary, which then what it does is it converts it to a JPEG. and sent it to you as an email. So the whiteboard is pretty handy. You know, a lot of people are used to going up and writing on whiteboards, or, you know, way back in the day, chalkboards. So this is an electronic whiteboard that, again, Microsoft whiteboard is built into, you can get it from the Microsoft Store and add it into Teams, and here you are. So I'm going to leave this meeting. The next thing I wanted to show you is a lot of us, you know, because of COVID, we're all using Zoom as well as Teams. You know, you can use Teams for your meetings just like Zoom, but there's a lot of folks out in the world that aren't using Teams. And so you'll notice that I have added the Zoom app here. When you do this, what it'll do is it'll ask you for your Zoom credentials, and it'll essentially set up a secure handshake between your Microsoft 365 and your Zoom. And if you click on, you know, you can see here in my meetings, in my case, I had pre-signed in before the call today, but if I hadn't, it would ask me for my credentials there. But you can see I can easily just start my Zoom meeting here. I could also, if it's something that I didn't schedule, that somebody else invited me to, you get a join button. So if I scheduled it, there's a start button. If someone else scheduled it, there's a join button, and you can certainly schedule them real time in here. Obviously, there's a lot of overlap between Zoom and Teams, but you know, it's a world where, you know, the nice thing about Teams is that they support both, and you can easily just flip-flop between the two. So the last thing I wanted to show you was something called Bookings, which is another thing that's built into Microsoft 365. So Bookings is an application where you can expose your calendar to folks outside of your organization and allow them to book appointments with you. And so in this particular case, this is what it looks like for today. And you can see that you can tool through various days. If somebody wants to create a new booking with you, they could click here. But typically what's happening in this scenario is that somebody outside of your organization, let's just say they wanted to, you know, make an appointment to, Dopey wants to meet with me to talk about laying down soundtracks. He could go to a web page. He could pick, I'll show you what the web page looks like. Give me 1 second. So this is what it looks like. Let's say Dopey wants to pick a second appointment with me. He could come in here. He's going to do a costume fitting this time. He could pick whatever day he's looking to do. He can pick who he's supposed to meet with. In this case, I'm going to say he wants to meet with Justin. And in this case, when you choose Justin, it's showing only the times that Justin is available. You'll notice there's nothing available for Justin before 12:30 because his calendar is already blocked. So this is what your client or the person you're trying to schedule with outside of your organization may use. They can fill in their name, click book, and then what ends up happening is it books it, puts it right on your Outlook calendar, it's all integrated into Teams, and then you can come in here and see exactly who had scheduled what from a booking standpoint inside of Teams. So those were the sort of just four simple little apps. You can see down here, there's a little apps icon here as well. And again, I invite you to scroll through all of these. They're organized by category, and there may be something in here that you find very useful. And then it'll be right here essentially at the click of a button so that you can easily access it through Teams. All right, with that, that's the end of what I had planned for today, but we did get a few questions submitted prior to the call. The first one was, Dan, do you want to remind me what the question was?
Sure.
Yeah.
It says, I heard there is a new plugin or app you can use with Teams that transcribes the call in real time. Is that true? And if so, what is the name of the app?
Okay, so the question, just to repeat it, is that what we heard that there's a new app that will transcribe the calls in real time. And the question is that correct? And if so, what's it called? Teams does have the ability to do something called closed captioning built in. So as you're on a call, you can turn on the closed captioning and it will do, I don't know if you've ever done that on your TV, where it translates the spoken word and types it right there on the screen. And then in terms of the transcriptions,
If you go to the Stream app,
Yeah,
you can download the captions afterwards.
yeah. Okay, so the transcriptions, the way that works is it uploads the meeting into the Microsoft Stream, which if you're in your, I'm going to go back into my Microsoft environment here. So here I am in the Microsoft 365. If you click on the little app launcher over here, you're looking for something called Stream. Then at that point, you can see the transcribed, the transcriptions can get stored in here. So that was the first question. The second question we had was related to, remind me?
It was, can you make a Teams call if you don't have the person's email address?
Right. So the question was, can you make a Teams call if you don't have the person's email address? So the answer to that is if you have the phone system subscription on your Teams account, you can make phone calls just like you're dialing a regular phone number. In this particular case, you would do that through calls. And then in here, this particular account does not have a phone system subscription, but if it did, it would give you a regular dial pad here, and you could just dial a regular phone number. Like, you know, if you wanted to call IT Radix, it would be 973-298-6908. You would just type that right here instead of an email address, and it would literally make a phone call just like a regular phone call from your, you know, your cell phone or your desk phone. It's all based on the subscription that the account that you are logged into Teams has. So the answer is yes, if you have the right subscriptions. Any other questions?
Nothing that I say.
Okay, well, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. Keep your eyes peeled on email for some future webinars. If there's topics that you'd like to hear or discuss, we would be happy to cover them for you. So that's it. Thank you so much, Cathy from IT Radix. Have a good day.